A holy grail in collecting is not religious. It refers to finally finding the hardest thing in your focus, the thing most sought after by other collectors, and obtaining it. In the world of plastic toy soldiers, a hobby that has been around 70 plus years, the Holy Grail is Britain's set 6314 Paratroopers. This is it, the first version in the original box. In this video, we will look at why this set is so rare and why it is the Holy Grail. Next, what does it include and what is the difference between the valuable Grail version and the common version? Lastly, what is this Holy Grail valued at? Welcome to Collector Guide. This is the set, Britains Super Deetail 6314 Paratroopers. A really great looking set, but surprisingly so. More on that. And there is one note on this particular set which we will explain later. Britains had been producing their premier plastic line detail toy soldiers since 1971. But by the late 1970s, they were looking to take the line to its next level of success. That would be through multi-molding. See, Britain's older detail figures used a single mold with a single colored PVC plastic, like this one made much later by another company using the original Britain's molds. But their competitor, Timpo, had finally figured out multi-molding, where you use several different colors of plastic in different molds, building layer upon layer so a figure emerged complete in the glory of several colors, eliminating the expensive step of having workers hand paint on items. Here are a few examples of Timpo's multi-molding. Now, Britains consider themselves the clear leader in the industry and superior to Timpo, so it must have rankled them that this inferior competitor had figured out this technique, and even worse, Timpo was using it to make a dent in Britain's sales. Using this process led Britains to create its own super detail figures, and to its greatest disaster. The name Super Detail was obviously their attempt to associate the new figures with the wildly successful detail line that came before. But also to note that being the first figures of this new path, they were beyond the earlier figures. They were super detail figures. The first Britain's toy soldiers to use the multi-molding process and launch the super detail line were all new modern British paratroopers. As usual with sets in the Britain's detail line, they came in a set of 6 different poses. Like earlier sets, they also came in a box with 2 plastic trees as accessories. Unlike the majority of the earlier detail sets, they were not released with an opponent. This was actually an important change. One reason that Britains believed that detail was so successful was because each set contained 2 sides to a conflict, making it more engaging and giving you more items to purchase. We don't know why the Super Detail Paratroopers did not get an opponent, but politics may have played a role in the decision. More on that later. So, once they had designed and sculpted the figures, created the molds, and used the multi-mold process to produce the figures, in theory, they were ready to market them and begin selling them. Britains took the new paratroopers to the big toy shows to entice wholesalers and retailers into buying their new line. They also barely got them onto the last page of their 1978 catalog. All seemed ready for a big super detail launch. Britains wanted to make sure these sets were noted as being new, special, and worthy of attention. The new Super Detail logo went on all the packaging. And the first sets went out to buyers and shops. But the figures were a disaster. Britains, a company known for their quality, who in fact charged more for their superior product, had shipped out defective figures. They had not mastered the multi-mold process. The plastic was not filling into the correct spots on the mold, so the colored plastic was in the wrong places, and in some places entire sections of the figure were missing. An example of this faulty production can be seen here, where the flesh-colored plastic has seeped in and filled in where it should be just black plastic. This is a smaller example of the defect. Many were much worse. That boxes of these defective figures were being shipped directly to stores was of such a magnitude that it could permanently damage the company. Production was halted, shipments of figures were stopped, and orders were canceled. But some had gone out. The number most often referred to is 1,000, but it could be less than that. And because some of these figures were not made correctly and did not have their full plastic, they were susceptible to breaking and perhaps more likely to be thrown out. So, some of the ones that did go to buyers would have been broken and thrown out, reducing the numbers in existence. Additionally, these were toys from the 1970s, and a base of buyers collecting them, as well as people selling them, was not in place. People collecting plastic toys and selling them online would not develop for at least another 15 years. So these would not have been kept for a secondary market. By the time these former kids began to collect Britain's plastic soldiers and discovered that this set even existed, there may have been a few hundred left of each pose. Even rarer would be those sets that still had the unique box that they came in. This set contains one mistake. The figure firing the anti-tank weapon is from the later version, but we will show you what that original looks like later. I personally only know of 7 of the box sets of these first Super Deetail Paratroopers, although there are definitely more than that. This checkered past, lack of figures, a controversial reputation, and collectors seeking to complete their collections at all costs combine to make these figures legendary, and the most sought-after set of plastic toy soldiers, the Holy Grail. When this set became known by later collectors, there was a lot of confusion. This is because Britains did successfully have a mass release of the Paratroopers, and they became quite common to find. However, this was Paratroopers set version 2, but they are not the same as the first set. This version 2 came out in 1980. The box and 2 of the poses are from their first set. They were reused. But the poses were altered, so a collector can spot the difference. The key is really 4 things. The first version, the rare version, have more defined weapons. The first version have gray gaiters above their boots and at their wrists. The second version do not. The first version have a black band on their berets. The second version do not. And lastly, the first version have black insignias on their arms. The second version does not. The rest of the second set are all new poses. Nicely done, but not rare and not very valuable. You can still find plastic issues with them as well. Britains had not solved all their issues. Like this one where the flesh color goes up into the gun, or this one where the face plastic is too thin and the base plastic shows through. But mostly they are not dramatically flawed. They only made a total of 4 poses for this set, probably a sign of Britains beginning to cut back on production to make the set more profitable. Britains went on to produce the same figures in a Special Air Services, or SAS version. They had gray berets and brown camouflage. And they made a commando version in green berets and dark green camo. One other note on the first set, the Grail set. For many years after they came out and were abruptly pulled out of production, collectors believed that this was done for political reasons, that they were pulled because the paratroopers looked too much like the British troops serving in the then violent conflict in Ireland. The idea was that Britons were pressured to pull them. But I don't believe this was the case. The fact that Britons went ahead and produced the second version and sold them for years makes politics an unlikely reason that the first paratroopers were pulled. Poor production stopped these figures, not politics. By the way, our channel does a lot of videos on toys, so if you want to see more and get alerted to new videos, you know what to do. Back to the Grail. Let's break down these rarest of figures. These figures are a bit thicker than the others. They are more muscular and a bit bigger than the detail figures, closer to the true 60mm size. The legendary Ron Cameron sculpted these figures, as he had done most of the earlier detail figures. And despite the production issues, they are well done figures. And they have a sense of motion, of drama in the way that they are sculpted. Black plastic makes up the base and includes their boots, weapons, beret headband, and unit emblems. Their field smock and trousers are done in a mix of green and brown plastic to create a realistic camouflage look. Pink flesh is used for their hands and faces. Gray is used for their belts, equipment straps, gear pouches, neck scarf, and socks. Finally, red plastic is used for their famous berets. As with all of our Britains videos, the figure numbers and a good portion of this information came from Peter Cole's Suspended Animation. The description is mine, which is based on position, action, and weapon. Here are the figures. Walking with machine gun, kneeling firing rifle, throwing grenade while holding rifle, standing firing rifle, standing firing anti-tank weapon, advancing firing rifle from hip. Almost every one of these has a small production flaw, like this one's missing black beret band. That is to be expected. You are actually paying for these mistakes that made them so rare and so valuable. But despite these flaws, they look great. Now for the packaging. These figures only came two ways, in a box and on a blister card. The blister card is even rarer than the box version. Undoubtedly, Britains planned to sell them in other ways, but that did not happen before they were pulled. The box itself is odd. The background scene is downright pastoral, like a watercolor painting, hardly a warlike setting one would expect. The outer box color of yellow with black writing is unique and does not represent the rest of the Britains Detail line. And then there is the unique red and yellow Super Detail logo. The blister, or bubble pack, only comes with 3 figures, but it comes in the same red and yellow packaging with the new logo. As noted, Britains did not release an opponent set to fight the paratroopers, either version. This went against the normal successful pass system of the former Detail sets. If they had introduced an enemy set, perhaps it would have been the troops of a nation then unfriendly to Great Britain, terrorists. Or a few years later, it could have been the Argentinian troops to represent the Falklands War. And just as they never got any opponents, the paratroopers, in any version, never got any vehicles or buildings. So how much are the individual figures and a complete box set of the Holy Grail worth? There have been some single figures made available that are broken or missing sections. Those currently sell for around $140 each loose. Intact, loose figures in good shape sell for $200 to $350 each. An empty box with no figures would go for around $170. That blister pack, intact, would probably go for around $700 to $800. But the true Grail set, all 6 figures in a box in very good condition, would fetch around $1,500 to $1,700 US. In comparison, the second version of the figures sell for around $3 each, and a full set of the 7 in the original box would be around $70. So just to recap, here is the original Holy Grail set, and here is the later second version. Make sure you know the difference before you buy. So, the first edition of the Britains Paratroopers in the original box, the Holy Grail of plastic toy soldiers, a rare, expensive addition to any toy collection, but a fabulous set. Thanks for watching.